Live. Hello, welcome, Benny.
Yeah, hi,
Hi.
how are you?
Today to our 14th episode of Celto Live, 28th August. And I'm really happy to introduce our guest today, Mr. Vijay Benegal. Benny, as he's very well known in the industry. Uh, what do I say? A sound engineer who's had 30 years of experience under his belt and spanning diverse fields in audio, right from radio to films to television to live sound. So, welcome, Benny,
Thank you.
to
Glad to
today's
be here.
episode of Celto Live.
Yeah, hi.
And we really look forward to hearing your journey, that how did a MBA become a live sound engineer and a very famous live sound engineer.
Uh, Firstly, how did I get to be an MBA in the first place? That was never on my roadmap.
Okay.
The thing is that actually I didn't even have a roadmap, to tell you the truth. So, when I was in college, Shantanu Hudlikar, as you probably know, Shantanu Hudlikar was also in college with me, and we were just listening to music all the time. I mean, we'd lock ourselves in a room and just, non-stop. And of course, around college time, many people have this problem. You really don't know what you're going to do with yourself. So I was in that same situation, and my dad at that point suggested, he said, "Listen, how about if you get into software?"
Okay.
Yeah, why not? So
Right.
while I was in my final year,
Mm.
I also on the side did a couple of software courses, programming in COBOL language.
Right.
So
That was the right in language at that time. Yes.
yeah, so I managed to get a job in Patni Computer Systems at that point in time.
Right. Right.
And while I was there for about 3 years, and I kind of taught myself other languages as well. And I was actually very happy doing what I was doing. Programming was, again, it's a very creative job as well. And so I felt that I should okay, and I graduated with as a BSc Physics. At that point in time, a lot of engineers were being inducted into the company, and I thought that my qualification was probably holding me back. So my plan really was to do a master's in computer science.
Okay.
But my boss suggested that I do an MBA instead
Okay. Your boss at Patni.
at Patni. Yes,
Okay. He suggested you do an MBA.
he says don't go for a technical degree like this. You have your scope will be greater if you do an MBA.
Right.
So I said fine, but I didn't have time actually to study. To tell you the truth, the workload was really. I mean, it's like it was like the studio business here. I was working till 4 in the morning and back in the office at 9 and things like that.
This is around what would be like early 90s.
No, it was 85.
Okay. So,
Yeah, 85 to 87.
I mean, that was the time when IT was kind of starting off in India, if I'm not wrong. I mean,
It was booming. It just started booming at that point.
that was at the nascent stage for.
Yeah, yeah. And so eventually, I managed to study enough to do the entrance exam for the Asian Institute of Management, which is in the Philippines. I missed all the entrance exams for our Indian IIMs, XLRI, the works. I mean, all of them I missed.
Uh-huh.
And but I managed to do that. My mother got on my case. Said, "Listen, this last one you're not going to miss." So eventually I did, and I didn't realize I got the admission. So I
Okay.
said, okay,
And that's a very prestigious institute.
yeah, it's pretty.
Yes,
It's a
pretty
pretty.
well
Yeah,
known.
it's I
Yes,
think it's an
right.
affiliate of Harvard University and all that.
Oh, okay.
So then I went there. I did my 2 years, graduated, came back. I worked for about a year, and I jumped three jobs. One was the first job was with 20th Century Finance, which was marketing of consumer finance products. That was which wasn't too bad. Then a sales manager job at Sujata Verbatim,
Verbatim,
floppy disks.
floppy disks. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Verbatim. I remember we used to carry them around and
yeah, yeah, floppy disks.
right. Okay.
That wasn't such a great thing. And then I got a call for I had applied to TCS soon
Okay.
after. That took a while before they gave me the call.
Okay.
TCS back to software,
Software.
but the assignment that they put me in, I was really unhappy. I was just not happy at all.
Okay.
And around that time, so this would be like, let's say, late 90, 1990,
Okay.
my brother, Uday Benegal,
Right. Right.
they were
Indiscreet.
Indiscreet. Well, at that time, they were called Rock Machine still.
Rock machine. Right. Okay.
They were in the process of recording their second album
Okay.
at a studio called Music Room with a recording engineer known as Shantanu Hudlikar.
Right. Okay.
So now I know all the criminals involved. So I used to hang out in the studio whenever I could. I just go
Okay.
land up and obviously, so Shantanu and me frequently, if we had time, we would go out for a drink, and inevitably I would be complaining, I don't like my job, I don't like my job. One day he says to me, he says, look, we are looking for another engineer in this studio.
Hmm.
I think you can do it. And that's when one really loud bell rang inside my head. So,
Hmm.
yeah, this, I don't know why I never thought about this job. Shantanu's doing it. My brother's in the job, in the
The,
business.
hmm.
Why has this never occurred to me? That's how I got into.
I mean, that's incredible because okay, I'm a computer engineer myself from
Right,
Pune University.
right, okay,
It's just so incredible that you started off in a career with experience in IT, then
yeah,
did a management thing, which is pretty much, I would say, like a dream thing for somebody,
yeah,
and then had a good job, and you would have progressed in it, and to suddenly kind of, is now looking back, maybe somebody would say that, at that time, if maybe parents, somebody would say, "यार तू पागल है, ये छोड़ छाड़ के तू ये करेगा."
yeah.
I mean,
I was fortunate. My parents were extremely supportive. In fact, like even with my brother, when he decided that he didn't want to do anything but music,
okay,
which it's a difficult career choice,
right.
they said like, if you're sure, absolutely certain that you want to do it, we are with you.
Yeah, because you're talking about the 90s. So
Yes,
at
yes,
that time, we still, I mean, we still come from that time when the doctor, engineer, lawyer,
yeah, yeah,
was like or of course, MBA was the thing that, you should be one of the four so you are secure.
yes,
I mean, we were in the transition phase, I would
yes,
say. Audio wasn't really something that, even when I said I want to get to audio, it's a passion driven thing for all of us, I guess.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
thing which we found common amongst everybody we have spoken to till now. Anybody and everybody has got into it for passion. So I think it's so interesting that you're saying this, because I think firstly today young people have constantly this pressure of being, everyone asks them, do you know what you want to do? And when you look back, really it's very difficult for a pre 20-year-old to know what he wants to do.
Absolutely. But that's nothing new. I mean, I had the same problem.
Right, precisely.
Yeah. So it's yeah, there are some fortunate people who got it very clear in their heads and they actually got a roadmap. But I think most of us don't.
Yeah. I
And like now not that I want to encourage people to just go wandering, trying 25 different things before you figure out what it is you want, but it's worth it at some point in time trying to think about what really would you like to do. But yeah, it's a tough call. I mean, that sort of thing.
so okay, so Shantanu and Indiscreet, and they said that, would you like to work with us, and you just made the switch from
Yeah,
there to the studio.
I was ready to join the next morning,
Man,
but
okay.
of course I had to serve a notice period and all that. But one of the things that I um, would like to point out over here, those that couple of 10 days or 2 weeks of just hanging out in the studio, whenever a little bit of time, if I had half an hour or if I had a 1 hour, or sometimes it would be at the end of the day and they were still in the studio. So if I finished, let's say 8, 9 o'clock, and they're still recording, then I would go to the studio and hang out with them till they pack up. So I would sit in a corner and I was just observing. I spent all that time only observing. I didn't speak to anybody unless there was conversation happening. I tried to stay as much like a fly on the wall. And by the time Shantanu put the question to me and I had actually started, he did not have to really give me any kind of instruction as to, okay, like, no, this is what a mixer channel looks like, and this is what this knob does, and this is what that knob does. Because once I was sitting down observing, I kind of within a week I understood the principle of what is happening, and off and on they would ask me to help do something, and I kind of just picked it up like that. So by the time I started working as an assistant, I was already like 10 steps ahead. So it was a amazing.
That means I would say that you were kind of meant to do this. I mean,
But I
yeah,
was I think so.
yeah, because if you just observed and you were pretty much already got the basics there, like you said that,
That's
so it's
true.
almost like muscle memory, like it's almost like you learn to ride a bicycle and then you stop riding it, but when you sit on it again, you
Yeah,
know it. But in
yeah.
your case, without learning, you already had that memory, so
I kind of figured it out very quickly.
figured it
Yeah,
out.
yeah. That
And
was like really the fun part. And
nice.
of course, like for me, I started listening, like when I got serious about listening to music, it was with a rock band called The Who.
Yeah, the Who,
The Who, yeah.
right,
And the first album that I heard of theirs called Quadrophenia.
right.
It's a concept album, little intense, but it was the first album I heard. It's not the kind of album that normally people would say, "Wow," on first listening. It kind of grows on you, but this just blew my mind. So, rock and roll is where I started, and which is where I wanted to go. But when I started actually working at the studio, by that time the industry, the Rock Machine album was finished. They finished mixing it, and it was already going for release. But so I didn't get to do any rock and roll immediately. Advertising. That
Ah,
was my when I actually started earning money in this business. Yeah.
the bread and butter, huh? Sorry, I lost your voice. Uh,
Hello.
you're back. You're
Yeah.
back.
Oh, sorry. I shouldn't touch this.
No,
The
no.
cable. Yeah.
So,
So advertising. Yeah, that was the bread and butter for like a lot of people. I think
right.
in the initial stages.
So jingles and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mixing in mono for TV.
Right. How was that? And how did so your passion, of course, was rock and roll, which you wanted to do, but you got into jingles. And how many years did that go on then?
Uh, See, I was employed by the studio music room
Hmm.
for about 2 years.
Okay.
Uh, Kind of 2 years into, or maybe 1.5 years. At that point in time, I think yeah, about a year from. I was very fortunate actually that I spent only just short of a year as an assistant before I was allowed to engineer my own sessions.
Okay.
Now, in that studio, we had three engineers: Shantanu, me, and this guitar player called Derek Julian, very fine guitar player. And we used to actually we didn't have assistants. So I was an assistant to Shantanu and Derek until I became an engineer. And after that, everybody we would do everything. We had to do everything. And those are the days of analog recording on tape.
Of course. Spool.
Huh? Sorry, yeah, spool.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it was. It, I was lucky that it took me less than a year to become an engineer. No, I think the period as an assistant ideally should be 2 years. I
Okay.
got lucky. And then about 8 months after that, the owners gave me the option of working as a freelancer. So
Okay.
I do most of my work in the studio,
Okay.
but I'm billing clients as a freelancer rather than as a
As a
studio engineer,
studio employee. Okay.
which I jumped at because that gave me the option to earn a lot more money. So,
And this we're again talking about 90s only, right?
yeah, this would now be 1990. I joined Music Room on the 1st of November 1990.
Okay. Okay.
By the 1st of November 91, 92, I
Hmm.
was already a freelance engineer.
Okay.
So, yeah, and then I've been freelance ever since.
Okay. So then from there, so the initial years in the studio, and then how did Bollywood or live happen? Like, I mean, when did that happen?
Okay, so the studio still, like I said, it was advertising essentially, but I did get the odd opportunity to work on some independent music albums. There's an artist called Jasmine Barucha, which was produced by Zubin Balaporia and Ehsan Nurani, and then a few other, maybe one film song recording, or at least part recording would happen over here. So mostly advertising, but a lot of opportunity to do this. Then somewhere along the way, I'd say this would be like maybe mid 90s, or probably, yeah, maybe 94, 95, 96 maybe, when I got a call from my brother. They were flying back from Dubai directly to Bangalore for a concert,
Okay.
and we didn't have an engineer for that show.
Okay.
Says, "Can you come?"
Hmm.
I said, "Look, I can come. I mean, I have it. I physically I can make it. I don't have recordings. I'm free. I can actually make it, but I have no clue what to do. I've never done a live
Like.
concert before."
Hmm.
So he says, "It's okay. Don't worry. We'll figure it out." So I said, "Okay,
Hmm.
jump in the deep end. That's how I
Right.
learned to swim. So this is
Right.
how I'm going to learn to do this."
Right.
So I flew out to Bangalore, and we started. I'm standing there looking at this stacks of speakers, and
Right.
I said, "Okay, I know what the principles are of audio for a studio. Let me just work with that."
Right.
And so we set up and this and that. And well, I was lucky that the sound vendor, I think it was this
Felix
Felix Reynolds.
must have been 96 at 90s. Brad
Yeah,
Felix. Yeah.
yeah. So I think they were there, and they were very supportive, and they said like, yeah, they helped me through. And so it wasn't a complete catastrophe. It wasn't an amazing show,
Hmm.
but it was difficult. But again, it was great fun. I mean, at the end of it all, I was exhausted, but I felt really good because it was such
So
a
the
great experience.
adrenaline flow must have been different, huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Yeah,
being in a studio, being in a room,
yeah, yeah,
you're in it for hours and hours, and now you're in the open, and that
yeah.
energy, the energy of a live show is a live show,
Exactly.
right? The crowd and everything. So you're piloting the spaceship sort of a thing.
That's right.
Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, then after that, I did a lot of gigs for Induscrete. By that time, I think they changed the name to Induscrete in '93. Oh,
Okay.
sorry. I'm sorry. This incident actually happened earlier. Must have happened in '92, '93.
Okay. So when you were in the studio itself, only that time when you got
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah. And
Okay.
then I used to engineer all their from then on until they decided to break up, which was late '90s.
Right.
I did all their live shows, but I was still doing a lot of studio work as well. Mm.
So you were simultaneously doing both
Yeah,
studio and live.
yeah. The live only they were the only live
Okay.
act that
Only.
I was working with at that point. So I was able to juggle the two of them, the two sides of it. And then soon after they split, which was I think late '90s, '98 or '99. I'm not certain. Then I was back in the studios when I was lucky to be given the call for my first big Bollywood recording, which was Dil Chahta Hai.
Dil Chahta Hai.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I think
So
Dil Chahta Hai always brings about a smile on everybody's face. It was
mine
a,
too.
yours, of course, we will hear for, but for everybody, that movie was like a sort of it was a revelation of sorts. Whether you're young or old or whatever, it was that everybody's this thing of, being on the, being free sort of a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That was.
uh, Benny, again, I've lost your voice.
Hello,
Yeah,
hello. Yeah,
you're back.
I'm back.
I
Yeah,
think your connector on the PC which you're connecting to,
yeah. It's
that's
little. I
that's
should not touch the cable.
uh,
Basically, yeah. It's my hand. I'm not putting my hand
you,
behind
you
my back.
you should have a small mixer there which you can, itching, your fingers are itching to probably do stuff.
Yeah, I know. I
Okay,
wish.
so tell us about about Dil Chahta Hai.
Yeah, so Dil Chahta Hai was. It's difficult to put it into any single word or even a single sentence to describe the whole experience. But it was okay. Chalo, one word. It was inspired. It was inspired because things just fell into place. I think for pretty much everyone. Definitely, as far as the music is concerned. Uh, So when SEL decided to do this job, then Ehsan calls me and said, "Listen, we're doing this, but we are going to be composing outside Bombay." So Ritesh Sidhwani, producer, he has a he had a I don't know if he still has it. He had his bungalow in Khandala. He said that everybody's going to go there. I'm going to spend a week or so, week 10 days over there, just like away from the stresses and interferences and interruptions of the city, and compose for the film. So Ehsan said, okay, so you have to help us. So I said, yeah, I'll figure it out. And I organized a mixer and um, cables and speakers and this and that. And we piled into Ehsan's red Maruti Zen and drove up to Khandala. And so everybody was there and I was setting up. So it took me about 20 minutes to get everybody wired up and running. By the time I had got sound and everybody's, like things they'd already started playing, and Loy had started already on the keyboard,
Okay.
and Shankar was just humming the melody. Tanhai. That song got composed practically in 20 minutes. Javed Saab was sitting on the side over there,
Okay.
writing down the lyrics.
Hmm.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's such an inspired thing because I think by that I left. My father used to stay in Talegaon, which is just up further, about 20 kilometers away from Khandala.
Huh.
So I was going to stay the night over there and come back the next morning and then drive back to Bombay. So by the time I left to go to Talegaon, I think they had got one other song pretty much ready.
Okay.
By the time I came back the next day, they had a third song ready. So they
Okay.
had three songs, kind of, like the bare bones. Okay, we know this is what it's going to be inside 24 hours.
That's incredible.
Inspired, right?
Right.
It's so
Happened.
things just were just happening.
I guess fell into place. Yeah.
It's a rare kind of a occurrence. It doesn't happen like this all the time with I, mean, I don't think it's happened with them so easily, even after this. But that was one of the things about Dil Chahta Hai. It was just so amazing, fresh. Just things just happened.
And that was sort of a game changer for you, right? That
In my opinion, it was a game changer all around. I think the whole industry sat up and noticed that, okay, there's something different going on over here. And it's not just as far as the music is concerned, as far as the recording is concerned, it is also about the way the film and the whole project was put together. A lot of things, I think it made a lot of difference to the industry as a whole. That's my opinion. Definitely, as far as the audio and all that is concerned, the way one went about recording and putting things together, the practices were quite different prior to that.
like
But I can't take credit for being the first one involved in this. There are guys who were doing stuff before this, like Shantanu, because he worked on Mission Kashmir before this.
okay.
I think if Shantanu had not been busy with mixes of Mission Kashmir at that time, I might not have been called on to this.
Okay. Okay.
It was
So
things just like I said,
things
things were
like
just kind of
just yeah, when things are meant to happen,
yeah.
they kind of happen. I mean, you
But having said so, while we're talking about Dil Chahta Hai, I have to say that some of the work that Shantanu did for Mission Kashmir, outstanding. I mean, I think really the changes began happening over there. I don't know if there were other people who had started doing stuff like that even before that, but
Mm.
from my personal experience, I would like to give Shantanu some credit over here for also being a very strong contributor to the change in the way music is going to be recorded and
I, I think that always happens because there is someone who kind of brings about some change and then that becomes a trend for some time to come, But
yeah,
that person, you're right, has to be acknowledged that that person or groups of people who do bring about that change and who do have that courage, let me put it this way, to think differently.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mm.
So I think part of the reason for this thinking differently is because of our passion for rock and roll. They were all rebels in that field of
Yeah,
music.
absolutely. But
So
yeah, Dil Chahta Hai music was, I wouldn't say the music was rock and roll inspired, but yeah, the change is definitely a rock and roll inspired thing.
what I mean is, when I say rock and roll, I'm talking about the thought process and the thinking from away from the established mainstream,
Right,
schools of thought,
right.
so to
So,
speak.
right, the DCH was something new, definitely. It was, like I said, it means uh, a lot to a lot of people. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
still remember, acknowledging it. And Moshe, we miss you. I remember you were the person I saw it with the first time we saw it. You, me, and Abhinav. If Abhinav is watching in the US, so it's been inspiring to everybody. And Benny, then you went on to do so many other movies. I mean, you have done Zindagi Naam Milegi Dobara and
Yes.
Kaante. I think Wake Up Sid, and you've been part of.
Yeah. I've done, yeah, I would say like SEL has been my primary like set of clients in this in the Bollywood thing. But thing is that at some point in time, just the way things, the business changed, I kind of was I moved away from the recording aspects of so Dil Chahta Hai, Laksh, Kyun Ho Gya Na, some of the early films of with SEL. I was involved in the film from the start, from the record, from almost from the composition to recording to mixing, and
Okay.
then the 5.1 mixes of the songs in the theater.
Okay.
So I was, right there. But at some point in time, things changed, and I was no longer involved in the recording process. So
Okay.
I came in only for mixing of somebody else was doing the recording.
Okay. Somebody else was.
Well, I would mix the album.
So you were doing the post.
No, yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
Uh,
post. Yeah,
but is that something which is normal now? Is that a standard thing or what?
it's yeah. By and large, again it depends on projects the, and budgets, because sometimes you don't have enough budget to hire a freelance engineer, so you just do it with the guy who's in the studio.
Recording. Okay, right, right. So it's like the same thing, na? I mean, if you don't have the budget, the FOH guy does both. And if you have the budget, you have a monitor mix.
They don't want to mix, so yeah.
And so listen, you won for DCH, you won awards, and I think for other ones also, you won a lot of awards also.
No, no, I only actually got one award for Virchat Hai. I think it was called the IFA award,
Okay.
the IFA award for best recording for Dilchat Hai. I got nominated for a couple of other things, but I didn't get the awards.
Didn't you get a Z award or something? Because I mean, I think I saw on IMDb or something that under your name there are more these things mentioned. I mean, I could be, you would obviously know better, but uh, I saw it. I mean, that's what I kind of saw. So yeah, I mean, awards of International Film Academy, Award for Technical Excellence, Best Sound Recording, Dil Chahta Hai.
Yeah, that
That
was for IFA. Yeah,
that was for IFI. And then Z Cinema Awards Technical Award. No, Acha, you nominee.
nominees. Yeah,
Okay, sorry. Okay,
yeah, yeah.
best song recording. Okay,
I got nominated for a few awards, but I didn't actually.
okay,
The thing is that in this country there are very few awards really for technicians. There are
correct,
not too many awards that there are hardly any technical awards.
right.
Um, that is unfortunate, because there are a lot of guys out there who are doing really good work and they deserve to be recognized. But there are only few. In the last few years, of course, there is the IRA, the
Hmm.
um, Indian Recording
Recording arts.
Arts
Yeah,
Academy,
yeah.
the IRA Awards, of which I am one of the jury.
Okay.
So they are focused on technical awards. So
I think that's important. It's very important to give the technical people their due because behind the scenes, but I mean, pretty much do the entire work is done by them.
yes, yes. And when Pramod Chandorkar was the first awards director not the first, but recently, what now? I think we're in our fourth year now, this year. So when he first approached and called me and he says like, we are setting up a jury of engineers, reputed engineers to be the jury. So I think because of that, like there is some credibility here because the jury consists of people like myself, Pramod Chandorkar,
Correct.
Shantanu Hudlikar, Indrajit Sharma. So Srijesh Nair. So there are established names.
Name, yes.
Which is
So,
important. I mean, otherwise an award is just like, okay, I got an award.
right, absolutely. The person presiding over it has to be a technical person himself.
Yeah,
That adds a different level of credibility.
exactly.
That definitely, I agree with you, because otherwise the significance of it is kind of
Yeah,
lost.
lost. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So, so movies, and so basically you now, of course, you're touring with SCL, and you also toured with Ustad Zakir Hussain,
Yeah,
and you were mixing for. So when did that happen? And tell us about that.
yeah. So my my continuing contract with, or not contract, but my continuing work live thing with SEL actually began in 20, we're in 2020 now. So I think 2013 is when I started, as on a regular basis touring with SEL.
Okay.
But prior to that, I've been involved with Zakir, with Ustadji, since maybe, I don't know, I can't remember now. It's been so long.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
Primarily in the Barsi. So on the 3rd of February every year he has this Barsi concert in honor of his father, Allah Rakha
Allah
Sahib.
Rakha. Hmm.
So Mujib Dadarkar, um, Mujib Dadarkar, very established light sound engineer who's also worked a lot with Zakir Hussain. One day called me and said, "Look, why don't you come?" No, he used to do all the FOH, and he was a very close friend of mine. So I used to go. And, one day I said, "I want to come and hang out." So I was sitting with him at the FOH console, and at that time there was only the FOH. So it just turned out that I was operating one half of the mixer, and he was operating the other half of the mixer. And it's a day long concert. It
For
starts
the, for the same concert.
the same concert.
I've heard of one engineer having two mixers because they fell short of channels in the analog days where you patched one, but I've never heard of two mixers doing one mixer.
Yeah, so this is how we were doing it for a few years. I mean,
Yeah.
he would handle one half, I'm handling the other half, and we work well together. So there's no conflict. Putting two engineers on the same mixer is actually a recipe for
Yeah,
trouble.
precisely.
But we work well together. We think along the same lines, so there's very little interference.
Okay.
So it worked. And then at some point in time, the budgets improved, so they were able to get a monitor mixer. That was the main thing that really. So then I went on to monitors.
Okay.
So for the Balsi. So that was my involvement with Zakir Bhai. So this was from I started involved in this from since 2004.
Okay.
Then in 2010, Zakir ji had this. He has this every 2 years tour of the US called the Masters of Percussion Tour, which is essentially a percussion ensemble with one or two melodic instruments, like maybe a sarangi or a flute or something. They tour the US. So I went on that with in 2010 as monitor engineer. So again, Mujib and me were on that. Then 2011, we had a similar thing in uh, Australia and Asia.
Okay.
And so then soon after that, the SEL thing started. And recently in 2017 and then in 2018, uh, there's this kind of jazz fusion group called Cross Currents, which involves Ustad Zakir Hussain, um, Louis Banks, Gino Banks,
Okay.
Sanjay Devecha, Shankar Mahadevan. Um, did I say? So that's Zakir Bhai. Louis, Gino, Sanjay, Shankar, yes. And on bass is a very world-renowned bass player called Dave Holland, who's upright bass player. He's played with Miles Davis and all that.
Okay.
And on saxophone, an incredible sax player from New York, Chris Potter. This
Okay.
band called Cross Currents. We did this two tours in 2018, 2017, 2018, which again I was doing monitors for them.
Okay.
They're a phenomenal group, phenomenal group.
Yeah, I mean the lineup you're talking about is like,
Yeah. Every one of them is a star.
yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, that's my. I've been fortunate to get involved with people like this.
Yes,
And
definitely.
I have to say over here that people like Dave Holland and Chris Potter, as people, as personally also, they're very lovely people. I mean, very down to earth, easy to talk to.
Yeah, I've heard this. I mean, about so many, a lot of artists, a lot of good, well-known international acts and stuff. That's something which is common. That a lot of them, the
Yeah,
bigger they are, the more humble they become. You know.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
A lot of them are like that. Yes.
Subir was sharing that about when they did uh, Subir Malik. You know, when they did with
Yeah,
the guys, they are really down to earth. You know, in
yeah,
terms of. So now SEL and Ustadji, so very different kind of music and stuff. How does that play along? You know.
yeah. You have to adjust your mindset. That's all. I mean, I think any engineer should be able to adapt. Yes, I mean, it's not that every engineer can work with all genres. You may not be interested in it, you may not understand it. You have to be able to understand the music to be able to do justice to it.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I've had exposure to classical music since my childhood. My father was he was a huge fan. He used to listen to only classical music. I didn't pick up his passion for classical music at the same level, but I've been exposed to it a lot. And along the way now music is music. I mean, you know, just because I didn't listen to it when I was a child does not mean I don't like it now. I mean,
Absolutely.
and I've learned a lot from Zakir ji, from Shankar Mahadevan. My involvement with names like that. So it's like it's been always a learning experience.
Okay. So a question which you would have been asked, really, I mean, studio or live?
Uh,
What? Huh?
I can't answer that question. It's like it's such a difficult question to because both sides have their own pluses. End of the day, they both give me a rush. So like now, which is a better rush is I can't. It's different. I mean, I've been. I mean, I've not been in the studio for a while. So I've been itching to get back in.
Okay.
But on the other hand, also I really it's not like I want to get out of life. So it's a tough.
Okay. So what about for the younger, a lot of young people join it thinking about the glamour and things like that. So what would you have to say to them? Because, becoming a engineer, uh, they think that it's glamorous. Maybe would you say that's right, wrong, or what are your views on that,
I think glamour doesn't come into the picture at all. I mean, the only glamour that you may want to consider is the fact that you are possibly associated with an artist who's a celebrity of whatever level. Your job is not a glamorous job. I mean, you have to put in a lot of hard work. In the first place, you have to put in a lot of hard work to be even recognized enough to be associated with an artist that is a celebrity. So it's going to take a little while before the glamour rubs off onto you at whatever level. Yourself, as an engineer yourself, you're not a celebrity. You work for a celebrity. So
correct?
that's the limit of the glamour I can say that.
And the hard work, which because I know all of you guys, when, I mean, of course, right now things are a little different, but in under regular circumstances, I don't think you guys even know where you could be 3 days from now at times, I mean, you have a
Yeah,
suitcase packed at any given time, your traveling is crazy.
Yeah,
early morning flights to a show, sound check, maybe next day again early morning flight out. I mean, it's you're kind of like, am I right?
absolutely. You just described my life.
All of the all of friends,
Yeah.
uh, like yourselves, that's their life. That's the life.
So this was like like there was a time when you remember the times when you couldn't stay at home. You always wanted to go out
Hmm.
and out partying, hanging out with friends, this, that, and the other. With this, if I'm home, if I don't have a gig to do, I only want to sit at home. I'll sit at home, I'll watch Netflix, and I'll go to sleep. I mean, I don't want to go out and party and all that. So
Yeah,
it's
because your work itself has enough excitement in it.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
And you need that break. You need to just like kind of let loose
Yeah.
at some point.
You need to have a leisure time, I would say, where you just sometimes it's important. Like I feel that at least one day a week is important, where you really do nothing, or you have a no agenda day sort of a thing. At least most for us,
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Very
Sunday, I
important.
call it that. It's every other day you wake up. Okay, I have to do. There's that to-do list in the mind or on your
Yes,
paper on your phone. But that one day where you don't have anything to do and you don't plan that. That's very important to reset yourself also.
absolutely.
You
And
know,
it's not just in our job. I
any
think this is true for all walks of life.
absolutely.
However, as far as I'd like to point out about, I mean, so fine, yeah, in the live sound business, yes, there is all this travel and it takes up a lot of your time and energy and all that. But not to say that studio life is a piece of cake. It's not. I mean, in my early studio days, I mean, I've done, when I was at Music Room, there was this one period of about 10 or 12 days, which I was suffering from gastroenteritis
Okay.
and I was the only engineer available,
Okay.
and I was working 18-hour days
With gastroenteritis,
with
18
gastroenteritis.
hour days.
Yes,
Okay.
and there was this one 72-hour shift that I did in the middle of all this. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it again,
Wow.
but
2 hours, 4 days, literally
3 days,
3 days.
non-stop. I mean, it was not easy. It was I was a wreck at the end of those 12 days when I think Shantanu or somebody came back
Were you like you didn't sleep at all, or in whatever time you got at the studio itself on the couch or something like that? Huh?
in the chair,
In the chair.
sitting there like that.
Wow, that's
Okay,
very.
Benny, let's take. Okay, come on. That's what
But
I
tell
had.
me, something sound which your senses, you rely on your senses a lot, and isn't it like with that level of sleep deprivation, it would be really kind of unnerving to do something at that time. Even music would sound like, yeah, please,
Absolutely. Yeah, I see. It's not recommended,
right.
but that was the situation. I don't see this kind of extreme thing happening in in today's scenario. But that doesn't mean that you're not going to have long nights of working. Like part of the reason for that was it was just a very busy period. I did not have a relief because the other two engineers, Shantanu and Derek, one was on holiday and one was on a doing some tour or something like that. So I was the only engineer in the studio at that point in time. And this was an age where freelance engineering was just getting
Yeah, I was gonna.
into acceptance.
Right.
So there were only about a handful of freelance engineers.
Right.
There was me, there was Mujib, there was Rajiv Kenkre, there was Shantanu, there was Nakul Kamte, Derek Julian. I mean, I can't think of any others.
Right. I think that's something which has changed now. Today, in terms of anything, whether we
Yeah,
talk about engineers, we talk about equipment,
yeah,
there's no dearth of it. I
exactly.
mean, that time, I'm sure even studios were not that many that or whether it was engineers or like, similarly.
No. This was the time when it was really difficult even to set up a studio because your capital investment was ridiculous. The 300% customs duties.
350 to be precise. Yeah.
Now, if you
Hmm.
want to buy a mixer, you think 20 times before spending money.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and
Ab-
it was recording on analog tape. So, which means you had to be very sure of what you wanted to do, which I think applies today as well. You should be sure of what you want to do. But just because you have an undo over there does not mean that kuch bhi chalega.
Okay, so the question again you must have been asked very often: analog versus digital. What are your
Have been asked this question again. I cannot give you an answer. I mean, a definitive answer. I've had a lot of experiences with analog, and I love the sound of analog. But I also love what you can do with digital. I mean, it allows you to do so much more.
how much more the ease of? I
Yeah,
mean,
analog, working with analog. Um, I think I think everybody should get some training, spend a few months working only analog, because the discipline that you have to imbibe, or you have to, like, exercise, will is only beneficial for you in the longer term. Because analog is, you have to be very careful what you do. Digital is very forgiving in many ways. You have an undo button, you know.
or you can do corrections.
You can do corrections easily, you can edit so easily.
Hmm.
Whereas with you're working with on analog and analog tape, it's not so easy to edit a tape. You have to cut the tape. You have to
Right,
actually physically cut that tape.
right,
So so you have to be very, you have to get, you have, your fundamentals should be strong, and you have to be very disciplined about many things in order to, turn out a good job. So which I think it's useful. It's useful just generally to grow as an engineer.
so one something which I mean today, now in today's generation, I mean we're talking about spool machines, the
Yeah,
kind of dynamic range you had on spool. I
yeah,
still today have a Revox B77 Mark II in my house.
yeah,
A recording on that, any recording on that, the kind of dynamics you have
yeah,
with a good amplifier and good pair of speakers is incredible. You know,
yeah, yeah.
tell me today's generation, which is pretty much growing up on compressed music.
Mm,
I mean, I would say MP3 was great, but from a listening standpoint, a disaster.
mm,
Uh, Spotify today, all the platforms today, I think they're getting better in terms of their algorithms and all. There is compression,
yes.
it works. But when an engineer has to kind of, his benchmark is that, you think
Yeah.
things change as compared to, when your benchmark was something totally different?
In what sense would you say?
I mean, when you're recording, having to record for a format which is
Yeah.
like a Spotify, or I mean, which is a
Ah,
compressed format.
okay, I get what you're saying.
Hmm.
No, so you're not recording for that format.
Okay.
You're recording for a full scale, full bandwidth, uncompressed digital. You're recording for that.
But has the young engineer been exposed to that sound? That's my question. Because they see. I mean, I wouldn't say okay. I still listen to tube. I have a tube system
Right.
where I listen to music. Now, if I'm constantly listening on a Bluetooth device or on a system where I cannot really reproduce my reference is that much.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yes, that is. I would encourage engineers to spend time listening to at least CDs, music on CDs, or full bandwidth
Yeah, wave files for that matter.
files, or at the very least a very high resolution MP3. If you can get a 320 to 320 kbps MP3,
Uh, three,
that
yeah, 360 or
320.
320, right? Sorry, 320. Yeah, right. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, you have that's a good point there. I mean, because if your reference is always going to be in low quality MP3, then yeah, you're at a disadvantage.
So that's happened.
However, but on the flip side of it, that does, you are going to meet up with people who have different experiences, and they create. Okay, let's say a young guy happens to be working or just sitting around in the studio where I'm working. Now, I'm coming from a completely different space. So what I do and the references and the standards that I am applying to my work, that should roll off onto him. No? He
Correct.
should he should be able to absorb that,
Right.
and therefore realize that his benchmark is maybe off. They should be able to. I mean, they have to. I mean, I would say that I would recommend all young upcoming engineers to try to expand their listening thing to outside these
Yeah.
low resolution formats.
Yeah. Because today I find that majority of the music is being heard on that. So that kind of is becoming a standard,
Yeah.
So majority of this thing. Okay, tell me, Benny, one more thing. How important in a life scenario, according to you, is the system setup?
System setup is everything. We're talking about the PA, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So now, if that is not set up right, then no matter how good an engineer you are, you're never going to get a good sound. I've had to go through that so often. I think one of the most important people at for a live concert is the systems engineer, the man that sets up that system. When I say setup, I'm not talking about the guy that goes and hoists
Plus it up. I understand, but who tunes it and stuff?
the
Yeah.
guy who designs it according to the venue.
Okay. Right.
So, you use, I mean, like now we got these sophisticated softwares that allow you to design the system. You can see how many speakers you need of what kind, with what kind of coverage, angles, this, that, and the other. That is essential. And a good systems engineer will be able to improve on that also. There are two or three guys in the business. Unfortunately, they do not get called in because that's now one more engineer. But I think people should begin to pay attention to system setup, because
I
if you sorry
no. Please go on, please.
because if you want to have a great sounding concert, then have it sound good from the very beginning.
Right. Right.
This is a principle that I try to teach young engineers also. Like when you're recording, make sure your recording sounds good, so then you can have a great mix. If the recording sounds bad, then the mix is only going to be kind of, a good engineer can probably make it sound decent. So if your system is set up wrong or badly, then this entire thing. So think about it, like from my point of view. I am traveling with Shankar Hassan Loy. So I am coming in from a different city
Correct.
on the day of the show. I
Correct.
don't get time to actually do the setup. So I have to rely on the system engineer.
Right. And I think more so the times, I think this is a very misunderstood part, because either the system engineer is left to the rental company part, that the rental company will have a system engineer, which except for the really good ones, a lot of times it's not the case,
No, it's not.
right? Or then it's the job of the mix engineer. It's assumed that the mix engineer will take care of it,
Yeah, exactly.
right? So,
So see, like I had to go and I reached the venue. It's already too late. I can't say, okay, pull the PA down and we'll change the angles.
and
So
yeah,
we're like, now we have to sound check, and like it's got 2 hours left. So I have to say, okay, I'll live with this. I will tune it in terms of EQ. That's about all I can do really at that point in time. And maybe I
correct.
can
That's all you
tell
can.
them to change the angle of the whole PA. A couple of times I've seen the one PA pointing somewhere else. I say, why is it like that? They forgot to anchor it. So
And why I asked you this question, because in my interaction with a lot of young people, I realized that they didn't for them the sound engineering is the mixer itself, full stop. I'm like, okay, great, you could be excellent at that, but if the PA cannot reproduce it, if the PA is not set up properly, if the PA is, so many factors in it. What is your how are you going to mix? How are you going to ensure that the right sound is coming?
actually speaking, the quality of sound begins not with any of this. It
With the
begins with the musician,
right, absolutely, and then the microphones, of course, yeah,
then the instruments, then the
the
microphones, then
microphones.
all
I agree, absolutely.
all controlled by the human being.
Right, right.
Yeah, so it doesn't. I mean, having the fanciest mixer on the planet does not.
Right. The PA is the last, actually.
Yeah,
But yes, the first is absolutely well said. They're absolutely right. The musician, and then the uh, instruments, then the mics.
yeah.
Correct. Absolutely.
And you can even get a good sound with a average microphone.
Correct.
If you mic it correctly.
Yeah. Miking itself is a technique in itself.
Technique, exactly. You don't not necessarily have to have a very expensive microphone.
Right. No, I always agree. I always say that the engineer, a good engineer, is like the driver. You could, a good driver can take out performance from an average
Yeah.
car also, and
Yes.
vice versa. So
Yeah.
that's absolutely. But I think, but somewhere these are little misunderstood things.
They are,
Sometimes.
yeah, they are misunderstood. Also, I think partly for the reason that they are not being emphasized by people enough. Rather, these are misconceptions that people have. They only talk. See, I don't blame. Why should I blame a vendor for pushing the fact that he has this fancy DNB system? अरे मेरे पास DNB J series या GSL है या KSL है whatever. Yeah, it's great. You should, because they are very high quality things. But you also like try to tell at least your own people that, boss, just because we have this fancy system doesn't mean out of the box is going to always sound good.
Absolutely.
You have to make it sound good.
Make it sound. And this is a misconception. And I honestly feel that the better, I mean, see, to make a Honda perform is easier than to make a Lamborghini or Ferrari perform. You need to have way more expertise to make because that the level of performance is way higher. But then your level of engineering or knowledge needs to be much higher to be able to make that thing perform.
Yeah, exactly.
This is a misconception. The problem is that somehow the industry is growing up in such a way that people automatically assume that if there's a Ferrari, that means it's just done, it's taken care of, handled, no problem.
Yeah. If you don't know how to drive and control it,
talking about, I think there was a case where a valet crashed a Lamborghini in Delhi.
Really?
A couple of years back, he just took it and he the wall. He just didn't know. I mean, I mean, I have a simple thing on automatic brake. It's a handbrake today. If ever I don't like to give my cars for valet, but if I do, I ask them automatic handbrake chalani aati hai. Otherwise, you'll just be revving my car and probably burn the clutch or something like that.
Exactly.
Oh, lovely.
I just realized something. I've been mentioning another speaker manufacturer's
no, that's perfectly
name on this.
Doesn't matter. That's
like
no. You can Benny. The Celto Live format is about you, and it's no problem. You can mention as many manufacturers and stuff. I mean, everybody has their own place and all. So today is your journey, so that's perfectly fine.
Philby is promoted by Celto. Is not. I should really not be talking about other.
No, it's a global market. We are absolutely fine. No problem at all. So tell me, you also do. You have a acoustic consultancy business,
Yes.
which is called Audible.
Audible, yes.
With a unique spelling.
Yes, ODBLE.
Right.
But the ODB is supposed to mean 0 dB. So it's like a little play on Audible, 0 dB, audio, all that supposed to be involved in
together. And so, and when did that happen, and what exactly do you do in that?
This we started. So Mujib Dadarkar, and he's my partner in this. We started this in, I think mid 2000s sometime offhand. Like it's a little hazy on the exact year, but mid 2000s. Yeah, it's essentially we're focusing on acoustical consultancy for studios, classrooms. So we've done some corporate work, some classroom stuff, a few studios, Shanmukananda Hall, not the whole auditorium, but some partial acoustical treatments that happened that was done under our thing. Bandwagon Studios. So like there are a number of studios that we've.
Okay.
So we haven't done too much in the recent years because both of us have been actually occupied with our live sound careers, and like you said, there's so little time. But yeah, we have that as well.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, both of these are very time. I mean, they're two connected things, but very time-consuming things in their own right. I mean, sound engineer and yeah.
The unfortunate thing about this kind of service business, it's something that you have to be present physically to do it. Like, as a mixer, I can't send in an assistant. I mean, you as an artist will say like, I called you.
True.
Why should I? Then I would have called him if he was as good. I called you for your expertise, not for his.
Correct.
So I have to be there. So like, I could either be there or I could be here.
Yeah. True.
That's the unfortunate part.
True. Of course. I mean, it's your expertise, your experience, your know-how. I mean, it's your face behind the console which the artist is comfortable with. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
That cannot be.
Yeah, that's the important thing. Why does a why does an artist call a specific freelance engineer? For two reasons. First is that like he's comfortable with the person, as you know,
A
and
person.
the person, yeah, and he's also um, sure or confident of that person's ability to carry out the job and do a good job. He knows what. Otherwise, why pick me over somebody else? Right? It's not just. It's not only about being friends.
Correct. Correct.
There's that also.
Right.
That also does come into picture very often, but that's not the only thing.
Correct.
It shouldn't be the only thing.
Shouldn't be. Yeah. It's a multitude of factors in
Yes.
anything. And of course, in this whole, I think this whole period has made us realize the importance of human interaction.
Yeah.
You know, the that's the energy transmission or the human interaction part of anything, where we meet somebody. And I mean, you know, your SCL knows that when you are behind the thing, so of course they have to like you as a person firstly, and then the work that you're going to do and your skill set.
Yeah.
I think it has to be both. It cannot just be one also.
No, it cannot be one. I mean, see, I would say that actually liking me as a person
I mean, be on the same
would
wavelength.
would be secondary, should be secondary, because ideally we should be having a good professional relationship
Right.
where like you might not really like me at all, but like if you think that like I'm doing that I would do a really good job, then that's the reason why you should. That's the reason you're paying me. You're not paying me because I'm a nice guy.
Yeah, but like I said, it has to be both, because it cannot be that if only somebody is very good in terms of skill, and if their people, I mean, if the work is very good,
Yeah.
but if you don't know how to get along with other people, then I don't think that.
So yeah, so you have to be able to at least get along to like eventually have a good relationship. No,
Yeah.
but you know, see, there is a okay, this is a little anecdote I read about this engineer in the U.S.
Hmm.
Elliot Shiner.
Hmm.
He has mixed and he's got Grammy awards for his for engineering and he's worked with this band called Steely Dan.
Steely Dan.
I'm sure
Okay.
people
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
around have heard of Steely Dan. They're
Yeah.
very very particular about their sound and this and that. And they're like extremely high level musicians. So Elliot Shiner was was called for a recording somewhere in LA, and for about a month or two or something like that, uh, they were recording maybe one day in the week, and then for 2 weeks they never turned up at the studio. He got fed up at one point, and I mean he used to have greasy burgers and all that for lunch, and he got fed up. And when one day he was called in the morning to say, like, "Okay, we're not recording today," he said, "Okay." He packed his bags and left in the
Okay.
middle of this recording.
Okay.
He never heard from them.
Okay.
A year later, or 2 years later, he gets a call from them saying that, "Okay, we have this album to record. Please come." They did that album. They recorded. No mention of what happened the last time. Because he left. He didn't tell anybody. No mention of it. He came in. They recorded. He got a Grammy for that award for that album, and nobody spoke about that. Now that's a level of professionalism that is very rare.
I
So
mean, yeah, it's extremely rare. I think even for the Western countries, I mean, of course, we work on a very different level of professionalism,
yes, absolutely.
right?
Yes.
Something which I think we are working towards, kind of trying to reach. And how has your experience been? Because you work with a lot of international acts and stuff also. So
Yeah, no, I've not had any really terrible. Yeah, of course, everybody has to have the odd bad experience with someone or the other along the way.
correct,
I
correct.
mean, 30 years, so I'm bound to have something bad is bound to happen. So, but
Absolutely.
I don't really have any major, nothing major has happened that way. But yeah, there are. So by and large, it's been all right, at least in my experience.
Okay. Okay. So, Benny, any words to? I mean, we are of course in extraordinary circumstances, and we're all trying to make the best of it. Things are getting better, I feel. I mean, things are opening up again, and we have understood that we have to live with this. So we, of course, you're also, I think, I'm sure, itching to get back to, the desk and get back to work. We all are. So, any words for people watching?
Yeah, I mean, it's for working engineers. If you have, I mean, the thing to do would be to try and get some work that maybe you can mix at home. I mean, if you have a small setup, uh, it's not going to be easy, and mixing on headphones is not the ideal situation. But it's like something. If you can get somebody, some friends got some album that or some songs that they want to mix, work on that, or just experiment with stuff. Get some software and try new plugins. You can get them in trial formats. You don't have to necessarily buy them. Try and build up your own personal knowledge of the different softwares that you're going to use, because mostly people are working with software. And for newer people, and not just newer, but everybody really, to like do as much studying as you can. There's so much out there that is
Up, upskill yourself.
upskill yourself. Yeah,
So
that's
much information which is available free, which I think has never been available.
absolutely. I certainly I know that in the initial stages of this lockdown, with all these webinars going on, people were really gung ho with all that. But I think a lot of
Yeah,
fatigue has set in.
that
But that
reaches.
doesn't. But that doesn't mean that you can't find stuff that you want to specifically focus on. And
Yeah, yeah.
there's so much information out there. Like I spent a little time myself some time back on radio frequency for RF for sound. Like it's not just a matter of finding a frequency and syncing a thing. There's a whole thing that goes behind it. It's
Right.
important to learn that. It's important to understand what are the principles behind all this. So there's a wealth of information out there, easily available.
Right. I mean, and if somebody like you, after 30 years of experience, can actually go and you're learning something in this time. So I think younger people should see that as a inspiring thing. You with your that go out and learn and use this time in a positive manner, I would say.
I say I know that anybody can be a teacher. In fact, I have just recently been learning something from this boy who's maybe 25 years younger than me. He's teaching me about something. I called him. I said, "Listen, I need your help. Can you explain this to me?" He said, "Of course." He's my teacher right now. So you can learn from anyone. You can learn from anywhere.
True, true, absolutely. So thank you, Benny. Thank you so much. And Moshe, we miss you. We hope that
Yeah, Moshe, I wish you were there. Yeah.
yeah, and we really miss seeing you. And so I hope Auntie is better and she's at home now. So on that note, thank you, Benny. Thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your insightful knowledge and experience which you have gathered over 30 years. And wishing you all the best and hoping to see you very soon. I'm sure it'll be next year before we see you, but see you soon. And all the
Th-
best.
Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you, Moshe. Thank you, Celto Acoustic, for this opportunity just to talk. It's great. It's been fun. It's been great fun.
Yes,
And
it has.
stay safe, everybody.
Yeah, stay safe.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Cheers. Bye.